Hello and welcome all to a special edition of APAC webinar, specifically focusing on the new science and technology innovation policy made by Department of Science and Technology and role of digital online platforms, how they're going to be the game changer, how they both can converge together. And for that, we have a special guest today. Let me introduce to all of you. We have with us Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Head STIP Policy Secretariat, a man who has actually authored the draft policy, whose many is hailing that as a game-changing policy for the science and innovation sector of India. It also the advisor and head for SPLICE and Climate Change Program in Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Akhilesh Gupta. We have with us Mr. Raghav Gupta, Managing Director, Indian APAC, Coursera, one of the leading online reskilling platform and organization in the world. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Raghav Gupta.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We are also joined by Mr. Shantanu Mishra from Coursera. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Shantanu.
Thank you, Shavik, for this opportunity.
We all know that the science and technology innovation policy, the draft has been released and a lot of consultations have happened. And the main man who's behind this policy is Dr. Akhilesh Gupta. Dr. Gupta, my first question to you will be that how this policy is different from the past, and what are the key recommendations of Science and Technology Innovation Policy 2020? If you can shed some light on that, please.
First of all, very good morning to all our viewers and also to our panelists. And Sawik, that's a very important question that you have asked. We had 4 science and technology policies in the past after our independence. The Scientific Policy Resolution of 1958, Technology Policy Statement of 1983, Science and Technology Policy of 2003, and the Science Technology Innovation Policy of 2013. All these policies came at different point of time, and they were relevant and for that circumstances and situations. They had different emphasis. For example, when these after the independence, these policies have started, say 1958, there were several institutional mechanism started in India, and for example, IITs were set up, and many of these IIMs and other universities were set up. Also, the 2 big department, or rather 3 big department, DRDO, Department of Science and Technology, and Department of Space were set up after this policy. And there are many other examples. So that shows that policy will lead to big directional change in the government initiative. Now, having said so, I would like to mention that in what way the present policy is different from rest of those 4. So they are in the following ways. First, that most of earlier policies were driven from the top, and they were largely, I would say, prepared by the scientists. Another thing is that the 2 very unique thing that this policy has, which was not earlier policy, is that this policy is, decentralized in its formulation. For example, for the first time in the history, that the state governments were, consulted for policy formulation. The line universities were consulted for the policy formulation. The industry was consulted in a big way. In fact, a number of industry captains joined and gave their ideas and all. So this policy is bottom up in terms of its involvement of the stakeholder, top down in terms of expert providing directions and guidance, decentralized in terms of involvement of not just state government but also NGOs and other part of the other section of the society. Inclusive because we had range of people, all age type, all category of age, gender, economic status, and so many other things that we try to. And this is another unique part of this policy, that this is evidence based, not statement based. So we gather evidence that what India is today and where India should go in next 10 years was done through a thorough global and national level mapping of evidences that we had.
Yeah, Dr. Gupta, can you hear us?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, very important part which you have touched upon, that I think Mr. Raghav Gupta and Mr. Shantanu and all of viewers will also agree that one of the main highlights, there are many highlights. I'll come one by one to all the highlights of this draft policy, but one of the main point of is that it's an evidence-based policy, and multiple stakeholders consultation have been considered. We all know, Dr. Akhilesh, that the rise of Industry 4.0, which is intimately connected with science and technology, the advancement of thinking machines and technologies like AI, ML, machine learning will gradually become and demand skill. You talk about evidence-based draft policy. How DST plans to drive uniformity and evidence-based outcomes among learners like young students and researchers, maybe in the center of excellences like IITs and triple ITs. Uh, what I'm trying to ask you is that how STBI policy is actually helping enterprises who can actually come and support a larger ecosystem. If you can shed some light on that, when you talk about evidence-based outcome.
Yeah, thank you. I think there are two main parts of your question. One is, of course, how are we addressing the emergence of, the new technology in terms of, say, the AI, IoT, machine learning, and Industry 4.0. All these have been very, distinctly mentioned in our policy, that how we have, and kind of approach plan is also addressed. For example, as you said, these areas need to be penetrated and mainstream in every section of the society, not just in the area of education, not just in the area of R&D, but connect of these things with the industry, and industry must be able to adopt. We have launched one national mission for interdisciplinary cyber physical system last year, where the industry and R&D institutions are working in tandem to address these disruptive technologies. But this year we are going to launch a national mission on the another national mission that we are going to launch is quantum technology. This is another mission which will address which comprise of many other disruptive technology. Now, the idea is that, I mean, these emerging technologies are, they have already come to India, but how are we going to connect that for, to improve the ecosystem in the country is very important. So this is government is working. This policy has a very strong, recommendations for how we create the convergence between industry and academia and R&D organization. You know that India is spending only 0.6% of the GDP for research. Now, this is a big challenge. Comparing India, when India is now third in the global scene in terms of number of publication, in terms of number of PhD, numbers, in terms of number of startup. But why our spending is low? We are just 0.6% as compared to US, like they spend more than 2% of GDP, and many of the European countries. And we are in fact ahead of them in terms of STI ecosystem. How do we address? This is the crux of the issue, was that the contribution of industry is not adequate in the R&D. And how do we incentivize, how do we motivate industry to participate in this, is the some of the major recommendations are on that. For example, I'll tell you, this COVID-19 has actually gave us an interesting learning, which we would have never got it, had there been no COVID. And that was that, a few months back, we were not manufacturing any ventilator or PPE or mask or diagnostic kits. And now we manufacture all these things, and not only manufacture but export these things. So how it was possible in just 6 months time, which shows that India has every strength in terms of manufacturing these items. The only thing that was missing was that industry and R&D institutions had not worked together. During COVID, all industry as well as R&D institution worked extra mile and worked together. Government made an enabling mechanism for that. This should be, and government is planning to have this kind of convergence and synergy to be a new normal for future. And therefore, this policy is addressing this issue in a big way. We had discussion with the industry, and I'll tell you, industry people they have given wonderful suggestions how we can. So it's not that industry need only incentivization, you give tax benefit and another thing. I think industry is looking for much more than that. And those things have been clearly mentioned. I think industry is looking for a close partnership with the government and not incentivization alone. So we have addressed this in a big way in this policy, how industry and government and academia can work together in unison as one entity. So we have, for example, suggested an STI bank, which should be a caucus bank jointly established by government and industry, and money to be used from there. Similarly, we have also suggested that we should there is a system where we can work closely with the industry seamlessly by reducing the burden on industry in terms of compliance of so many regulatory mechanisms. So easing out the business is also another thing. For example, I'll give you example of the general finance rules of government are so strict and so stringent that industry find it very difficult to follow all of them. I think we have recommended in this policy that we must be able to ease out those kind of strict compliance on the rules without compromising on the overall governance and the overall implementation of business. So for large scale programs and missions, I think we need to have a different implementation and monitoring system as compared to what we have.
Let me again inform all our viewers that it's a special virtual dialogue on the new STIP policy between DST and Coursera, organized by APAC News Network. And Dr. Akhilesh Gupta was saying that what has been the basis of industry academia partnership for the policy and how it is how it has shaped up and how it's going to actually help. You talked about contribution of industry in the R&D was not that significant. How the STIP policy has tried to address that. Uh, I was going to the draft as you have talked about industry academia partnership, Dr. Gupta. My question again to you will be that the draft policy I think mentioned somewhere that consortiums will be developed for the creation of new online courses, simulations, virtual and remote labs for enabling immersive experience learning. And we all know that India has the capability to do that. But do you think that Academy India partnership has to be leveraged to achieve this goal? Again, when we talk about the evidence of outcome to map that outcome and your views on that, because IITs, triple IT, DST, they have to showcase something which can larger audience, the learner, students, audience can actually think about that. And not only thinking about the Indian perspective, the global perspective. Your thoughts and your thoughts on that, Dr. Gupta, that the opportunity for IIT, triple IT, DST students, researchers, when we talk about the new vision of STIP policy for academia industry partnership or achieving goals faster with the outcome-based evidence, because the new online courses, the virtual and remote labs are here to stay for many years now. That is the future. Your take on that?
So I think again, there are very interesting question. Uh, you see, when this science and technology innovation policy was being formulated, we already had a national education policy rolling out. And this was a good convergence. And when a national education policy is already released in August this last year, uh, how do we position a science and technology innovation policy which go in line or in sync with this policy? So we had, in fact, many of the academicians part of our policy formulation who are involved in the national education policy formulation. Two big learning that COVID has given to us. One is that so much can be done through online learning system and with much less effort. I think students over the time have learned how they adjust to the working from home and learning through these online classes and online learning system. I think although so far it has been in a kind of a compulsion that we had to have online courses, but I think in the time to come, it will become a new normal. And I'll tell you, this will give a larger space for learning. See, so far, if you say India's enrollment, the is about 25% or so. The this enrollment is going to increase because university will have a larger space to offer than earlier. There is no classroom limit now. We can increase, instead of taking 200 students, we can go for 300 students because there is no classroom limit now. So this is going to be, and that's why the policy has brought focus on how we include. Another very important thing, that the kind of demonstration we can organize on online may not be possible physically. So, creating new software for this thing, for learning will be very. Another important thing which is NEP has mentioned, and we also have uh, complimented, was that now gone those days when we were having education in discipline wise, physics, mathematics, chemistry, and all. If you look at the NEP, they are saying now right from the beginning, school time, There's no stream like science stream or art stream all. Anybody can choose any subject and for the 10th and 12th exam. Now this is going to be carried forward for the industry, and that's why the multidisciplinarity of disciplines will come. So this is what Aniki has saw, and Stick also said that we must create multidisciplinary research as well as education in the scientific area, science area also. So I think the whole lot of new vision combining the recommendation of the National Education Policy and this Science and Technology Innovation Policy is going to emerge in time. And this government has, in fact, bringing out something which is unprecedented. People perhaps have not realized the how the NEP and now STEP is going to make a dimensional change in the entire ecosystem of education and research.
Important point raised by Dr. Akhilesh Gupta is the main man behind writing this new STIP policy. You also talked about the convergence of National Education Policy and STIP, and how this both can be the game changer for India's futuristic education overall. I'll come back to Dr. Gupta, but before that, let me have a perspective from the other side of the table. We have with us Mr. Raghav Gupta, Managing Director, Indian APAC Coursera, and we all know that Coursera is among the world's leading online reskilling platforms and organizations promoting job relevant online learning at scale. Emerging themes like AI, machine learning are among the dominant courses on your website, if I'm not wrong. Most have been created by top global universities. With an understanding while working with business, universities to deliver job relevant content and governments on skilling initiatives across the globe. That has been the focus area of Coursera. Let me ask this question to Mr. Raghav Gupta. What are some of the emerging trends and what it means for institutions like IITs and triple IITs or other leading institutions in India when we talk about these new interventions? Your take on that vis-a-vis the STIP policy 2020.
Thank you, Shavik. So I'd like to build on what Dr. Gupta shared, that I think COVID has accelerated a lot of change, and COVID has also taught us a lot of new things. And in my capacity as managing director of Coursera, we work with many companies in the industry. We work with many universities. We work with many colleges as well. And a lot has happened fundamentally, which is shifting permanently how work will happen, how education will happen. I've put together a few slides, Shavik, and if you're okay with it, I can quickly share my screen. And over the next few minutes, share a little bit of what we are seeing that's been shifting. Do I have permission to share my screen?
Yeah,
I think
sure.
I do. Are you able to see the slide
Not yet.
now?
Yes, Raghav.
So the slide, which is the skills revolution, you're able to see this, please, if you could confirm.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I thought, I could share a little bit of one we are seeing in industry, skills are changing. And then we are working with, I would say, lakhs of students, thousands of universities in the country, and how some of the changes are happening and how we are facilitating some of that. So let me jump in. So just as context, and Dr. Gupta spoke about this already, we are seeing two things are happening from an industry perspective. And, the World Economic Forum calls this double disruption. Automation was already happening because of artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. COVID has been the new disruptor from last year. And they are talking about four large trends. One, in many industries, some jobs will be displaced because of automation. This has got accelerated because of COVID. So the number of jobs available in the industry are going to be lesser. I think from an education standpoint, what is important to call out is the skills that are required for these jobs are also changing. The need for technology in many jobs is going up. The third thing which is happening is many of us in the industry have got used to working remotely, working from home. And so this work from home phenomena is also creating certain changes. And then lastly, digitization is happening in companies. Banks are going digital. Many companies are going digital. All of us are meeting online today as well. And this is changing the kind of skills that industry wants of the people who work in the industry. And of course, industry wants students who are coming into the industry to have new skills as well. Now, within our country, one of the biggest hiring industries is the IT industry. And in the IT industry, even pre-COVID, we were already starting to see some similar shifts. So there's a lot of data on this slide, but basically what this slide tells us is if you look at the hiring that was happening across TCS and Infosys and HCL, even pre-COVID, it was coming down because one, the number of jobs that were available for generic skills was reducing. And the number of jobs that were required for specialized skills, which were skills related to blockchain or machine learning or artificial intelligence, was going up. And this has accelerated because of COVID as well. And given some of this, we believe that higher education will possibly have to address five topics, five challenges. One is student employability. Given everything that I said, I think the kind of skills that we need our students to be learning is going to be different. So how do we, in a system which takes time to change, a college curriculum takes time to change, how do we make sure that students are getting these skills for new employability? Second, cost management is going to be important. In general, with slowdown in the economy, parents are struggling to be able to pay tuition fees. So managing costs is going to be important. Third, there's an opportunity for higher capacity. And Dr. Gupta spoke about this as well, that because of online education, you don't have to be limited to physical capacity. You can actually expand the number of students that are addressable. And this could actually spur a growth in the gross enrollment ratio in India from 25-26% to higher levels. Fourthly, we can't have students be developed unless faculty development happens. So we need to first develop faculty before we develop students. And then lastly, students are a little worried that if I go to a particular university or a college, will it get me ready for jobs of the future? And so universities need to drive innovation within their own campuses. And so given some of this context, what we've been doing is we've been partnering with higher education during this period of crisis and rapid change, but I would also say this has been a period of opportunity as well. And just to quickly tell you what we are seeing on our platform. So Coursera, as you may know, is a platform. We don't create content, but we partner with top institutions and get their content to lakhs and crores of individuals on our platform. So today there are 7.5 crore individuals who learn on the Coursera platform. This was 5 crore in January 2019, and it went up to 7.5 crore. What they learn comes from 150 of the world's top universities from the Western world and from India as well. And also very importantly from companies as well. Companies are creating so much new technology, Google and IBM and Infosys and so on. So we're bringing that content to students as well. And then as a part of our institutional platform, we work with businesses, we work with governments, and we work with campuses. So during last year, during 2020, we partnered with the governments of certain states like Odisha, like Tamil Nadu, like Telangana, where we made Coursera available to people in these states who had lost jobs for free. Because of COVID, certain jobs went away, and we made lakhs of courses available to these individuals for free. Now, content is coming from top universities, and this is a view of some of these 150, universities. And whether it is Stanford or Yale, or whether it is IIM Calcutta or IIT Roorkee, that's the content available on Coursera. I think the fundamental shift that we are seeing is when all of us went to college, we learned from faculty which was of our college. And today, what is changing, and the NEP is speeding this up, is Today, when my son goes to college, a part of what he learns comes from his faculty in his college, but a part also comes from the best faculty in any university around the world, right? So today, my son can learn um, machine learning from his professor, but can learn artificial intelligence or data science from Michigan or for Johns Hopkins University and so on. And the Ministry of Education's policy that 40% credit can come from online education is facilitating that, which is a big step forward. The other thing that we are seeing is companies are also investing a lot in training their employees, and 2,400 plus companies are training their employees on the Coursera platform. And you'll see on this slide whether it is Axis Bank, whether it is Mindtree, whether it is Infosys in India. Now, the reason I'm sharing this is if we know what industry is looking for, we can bring that knowledge to higher education as well. And Shobik, to your question around how can we have the IITs and triple ITs think about these skills of the future, this is exactly that approach. That if we know what industry is looking for in the post-COVID world, we can fairly quickly bring that even to the IITs and the triple ITs. And this content is a combination of core content, which is exactly what your degree asks you to do, but also going beyond that. And again, I think Dr. Gupta spoke about this, that today an engineering student does not need to limit to only engineering topics. They can take, emerging topics or technologies. They can do multidisciplinary learning. They should also be learning skills for the career. And then the other thing that we have enabled in the last 1 year is hands-on learning, but online. That's obviously always a constraint, that how do you enable hands-on learning to happen online? And let me show you a quick snapshot of that in just a second as well. The other thing that we've been doing, and I was mentioning this earlier, is because companies like Google, companies like IBM, Intel, Palo Alto Networks are creating new technologies, we are bringing this technology to students in India as well to say, let's make this available to you so that you're ready for jobs of the future. And a lot of these emerging technologies that Dr. Gupta referred to as well are now available to learn on the Coursera platform at a very, very affordable kind of a price point as well. And then lastly, I would summarize on 2 slides by saying, if in a college in India, at an IIT, if a student is learning engineering as a topic per se, the approach that we are finding working very well is, along with what is happening on campus, we can bring learning and education from the world's top universities, from the world's top companies, and also we can bring hands-on learning via what we call guided projects. And this is a good approach for setting up students for success in their careers, and also if they want to pursue further higher education. Just on the topic of hands-on learning, we launched something called guided projects last year. Many jobs require us to learn a software today. If I'm working in marketing, I probably need to learn digital marketing. If I'm working in data analytics, I need to learn Tableau, which is a data visualization software. We launched this in May of last year, and within a few months of launching this, almost 1.5 million students had taken guided projects on the Coursera platform. And guided projects are basically 1 to 2 hour hands-on projects where you can actually come and build a portfolio website with HTML, for example. You can come and learn project management. You can learn SQL and topics like that. And these are hands-on without having to purchase an expensive software, install them on your machine. So this hands-on learning topic is something that we expect will be very helpful for students in the country. And we are seeing a lot of uptake on that. I'll pause with that. I think these are some helpful, discussion points for us to build on further as to what we've seen during 2020, how we can take these learnings and further accelerate this job readiness learning for students in the country. Let me stop with that.
Thanks, Mr. Raghav. As you've rightly pointed out, that how Coursera is helping in the job-oriented skilling using digital medium, and you also talked about how when Dr. Akhilesh Gupta was speaking, he talked about the importance of academy industry interaction, participation for changing the overall ecosystem, and you just have shown that how you're taking the guidance from the industries to make the courses which can be actually helpful for students for the new world order. I'll come back to you on that, but before that, Dr. Gupta, Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, what Mr. Raghav has just now shown us, just taking cue from that, uh, I have asked this question before. You have touched upon that slightly. I want you to elaborate on that. That when we talk about the science and technology innovation policy, again, let me inform all of you that he's one of the main person who is drafting that policy. Uh, why we can term this policy as a futuristic policy when it comes to focusing more on industry academia collaboration, because you have said that the role of contribution of industries in R&D was not that significant, which this policy is trying to address that. So I'm coming back to that, to you with that question, that why this policy can be hailed as a futuristic policy when it comes to collaborations between industry and academia to build an effective ecosystem. Dr. Gupta, if you can kindly unmute your mic.
Uh,
Yeah,
are you able to hear me now?
yeah. Please
Yeah.
carry on.
So thank you, Savik. In fact, I must thank Mr. Raghav for making a very lucid presentation on this, and very, very, I mean, heartening to see that kind of big intervention that he is able to bring. And in fact, he had rightly pointed out, and I would like to elaborate on that, and that I'll connect with the STIM 2020 policy. Uh, in many ways, I think the main issue between the collaboration between the industry and academia have been that in India, the universities are working at a low technology readiness level. In fact, most of the universities are working at TRL 1, 2, or maximum 3, which means that they focus so much of disciplinary research and education, but they do not go for innovation. And that's rightly mentioned by Sharavo that I think educational institutions, especially university, in order for their student to get employment, I think they need to go for the innovation. And this is exactly was is mentioned in STIK policy, and that's why it is very futuristic in those terms that industry is looking for skill educated people and not just people who have completed their MSc in physics or chemistry or mathematics. They need to pick those students who have the skill to contribute to industry. And that is the weak point of university system in the country right now. The stick is bringing this issue that no, we must create innovation centers in every university. Another thing that is being addressed here that in India we have so much of innovation taking place in the informal sector. It's called grassroots innovation. These innovation go, I mean, they don't go beyond their development, and therefore we want this. In this policy, we have mentioned that this grassroots innovation must reach to the market level, and university will play very important role in this thing. So I think, as I said right in the beginning itself, that we have everything. We have the most talented scientists, we have the most talented technologists, innovators, and I think Indians are known in the world that we are best brain people. What is lacking is the synergy or interconnection between these three verticals: the R&D institution, academia, and industry. complemented by the support from the government. I think now it is high time that we must able to come out with a national strategy on bringing these three verticals together. And I think STIP and Aniki both are, in fact, they are very, visionary in terms of capturing these actions that need to be rolled out by the government.
Indeed, indeed. As Dr. Akhilesh Gupta was saying, that science and technology innovation policy and national education policy both can be termed as futuristic when it comes to focusing on industry academia collaboration. I'll come back to Dr. Gupta, but before that, let me have a quick perspective from Mr. Raghav. Mr. Raghav, your experience in working with universities globally, leading universities across the globe. What are the best practices regarding leveraging the technology for innovation or emerging technology focused learning? I mean to say, what is the present scenario and what the future might look like?
So I would say, Shavik, I think higher education in general has been a sector which has been slow to adopt technology in terms of imparting education. All of us know that, not too much has changed in the classroom for decades, and COVID is forcing that to change, right? There are many studies which talk about digitalization in different industries, right? And banking has digitalized, telecom has digitalized, media has digitalized. There's so many industries which have digitalized. It has of course been slower in higher education. uh, we launched a platform called Coursera for Campus in New Delhi in October 2019. And this is a platform which is designed for a college or a university to provide high quality education, the kind that I was talking about, from the world's top universities and companies to students. In February of last year, 30 universities were using this platform. Today, there are 3,700 universities that use this platform. And the shift from 30 to 3,700 has happened because COVID accelerated it. So there has been a massive stimulation that has happened because of COVID. And this includes many of the IITs in the country as well. And the IITs are saying that even for us, technology is changing so fast that to be able to bring cutting edge technology to our students, whether it be from any company, a leading company, or any university for that matter, makes a lot of logical sense. And so even the IITs have adopted the Coursera platform, where one would imagine that quality of education is already high, and they might not necessarily need to look outside of their own, of their own campuses. The other thing that we have seen is that education or online education has moved from being gaining knowledge to also gaining hands-on skills. And that's the example that I was taking earlier, that we very quickly launched 1,000 guided projects on our platform, right? So any software that a student needs to learn, to buy that software, install it on your machine, find somebody who can teach you how to use that particular software is very, very difficult. What we've said is that you can come and learn any software without having to install it on your machine, without having to purchase that software, and by getting that taught to you by one of the best faculty related to that particular technology on your computer. And that's why we have seen this explosion in hands-on learning as well. What we have not done as yet is certain kind of labs do require physical presence, right? So I am a mechanical engineer, from many years ago, and I did study thermodynamics, and for that you need a physical lab. Now, can we take that onto a virtual lab? A lot of work has happened related to that in the country, for example, at some of the triple ITs as well. And one of the things that we are thinking about on our side, that can we take some of these topics as well online and really be able to progress that. But I would summarize by saying that the kickstart that has happened to innovation, to adoption of technology in the last year is massive, right? On our platform, from 30 to 3,700 universities. And then the other thing that I would highlight is the adoption of hands-on learning as well in the online space.
Right, right. So, if I can take a cross of what you said, that jump from 30 to 3,000, that's a huge jump. And as you rightly said, that you're trying to take virtually this lab kind of feel and how that going to actually help the students in coming years. That's quite important aspect. Before I ask my last question to Dr. Akhilesh Gupta about STIP, do you have any specific query or question, Mr. Raghav, to be asked to Dr. Gupta, so that then I can ask the concluding question to Dr. Akhilesh Gupta?
Yeah, one thing which would be wonderful to hear Dr. Gupta's thoughts on. We are seeing that many of the private institutions in the country, given what we have seen in 2020, are saying 2020 was a disruption, but this is a permanent shift, right? The fact that we need to provide high quality online learning knowledge as well as hands-on learning to our students, and they're getting into long-term partnerships with a platform like Coursera. They're saying we will do this for the next 3 years, next 4 years. What I would really love to ask Dr. Gupta is, with the IITs, with the triple ITs, is there policy, is there budgeting, is there senior level guidance that is coming to the IITs, to the triple ITs, where we can see this kind of an approach being made possible with them as well?
Yeah, I think thank you, Raghav-ji. I think there are disruption that have now nearly gone permanent with us. And this is I would say on a positive note that, this has been truly, the COVID experience has been truly rewarding to many of the institutions. And especially I would like to mention the government. See, one great thing the central government did. I don't know how many the industry people have watched this carefully. That although there was lockdown and people were working from home in many of the industry and other sectors, the government continued to work, in fact, in physical space also. All joint secretary and above officers, I remember immediately after the first lockdown, we were to report to office every day beginning from 25th April or something. That brought one message to the people that look, we are working like warriors, and we are for serving the people of the country. And in fact, it has impacted some of the central government officers and employees, but still government had given that message across. Institutions have been very, initial phase of the COVID has been very impactful on the institution, like IITs and all universities were completely closed down. Their offices were closed down, but then they recovered. And now, as you mentioned yourself, now all the institutions have recovered and now adopted a new normal of working online. I think this kind of change that has happened over a period of less than a year is going to be rewarding for the entire education and STI ecosystem in the country, including their connect to the industry and the other section of the society. I think this is going to be a wonderful experience and going to be a new kind of working normal for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akhilesh Gupta and Mr. Raghav Gupta, and also Ms. Shantanu Mishra, for joining us today. I'll ask my concluding question to Dr. Akhilesh Gupta before we wrap this session. But if I take the crux of last 45 minutes, 15 minute discussion, that we can surely say that science and technology innovation policy is going to be the game changer for incorporating the digital interventions for skilling and for the higher education spectrum as well, apart from the school education and other sectors. But industry academia partnership has to be there. More and more industry academia partnership has to be there. Newest technology has to be incorporated for in the curriculum itself, so that when a person is going out of the university, he is ready for that new role, especially in the new world order. And a policy like science and technology innovation policy and the digital interventions by Coursera can be actually mutual beneficial for the youth of the country. I think that has been the crux, and that is the future, if I may say so. But before that, before I let everybody go, my last question to Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, who is the main man behind the science and technology innovation policy, of the drafting of that policy. He has got vast experience. One question is coming to my mind, Dr. Gupta, how this policy is going to be implemented. If you can quickly share some thoughts on that, and then we can end this session.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I think, this is another thing that previous policy did not pay much attention to. So the policies are, they are statements, they are vision, they are wish list, you can say, for the government. Now, this wish list to be converted into action need a strategy or an implementation strategy, what you call. So, along with this policy, when we are going to release finally, we are parallelly developing a document we call implementation strategy document. So there are more than 100 ideas in the policy. Each of the ideas, need to be, seen in terms of its implementation. Also, we divided the, entire implementation strategy into three parts: short term, medium term, and long term. There are some action that need to be taken immediately, but there could be some action that go in long term. So I think just like the national education policy is now working on this implementation strategy, the same way we will work on the implementation strategy immediately after its launch. And without having a robust plan of action for implementation, I think the policy will remain in the paper and they will remain as a statement. So this was another weakness of previous policies, which were not clearly defined in terms of their implementation.
Right, right. So that's very important perspective shared by Dr. Akhilesh Gupta on how this policy will be implemented, and for that roadmap is also ready. Before we conclude, let me just request Mr. Shantanu. I think he has a question for Dr. Akhilesh Gupta. Quickly, if you can ask the question to Dr. Gupta.
Sure. Thank you, Shavik. And thank you so much for your time today. You highlighted that IITs have been doing a lot of work, a lot of R&D has happened at the grassroots level. And to create that larger ecosystem, some of that learning needs to be disseminated to the larger market, the other institutions as well. We just seek your guidance under STIP and the way government is looking into academy industry partnership. Will government allow, or there is a room for private players like Coursera to come and partner with some of these IITs, triple ITs, and take some of their best of the knowledge to the larger part of India or to the globe to establish the India thought leadership? Will that be a possibility?
So very good question. In fact, I'll tell you, this is what I was emphasizing, that unlike universities, which have remained aloof or remain away from, innovation ecosystem, IITs had done very well, and IITs and triple IITs and ICERs and all, they had done very well in recent years. If you look at any IIT in the country, especially the older ones, they have already set up innovation system and innovation centers in their IIT. And I think a lot of good work is there. I mean, since I am the alumni of IIT Delhi, I know how much work IIT Delhi is doing on this thing. And I think, in my view, the kind of policy direction that are coming from this tip, I think it will greatly help IITs and even universities to come forward and set up their innovation system, connecting with the industry, because I think that is the only mantra that we can, take forward. That India has done well in science. We are third in the world. We have done well now in terms of startup and all, but I think we are still way behind the global West in terms of global innovation index. We are at 48, though we have progressed well in last few years. But I think we must target India to position among top 10 in the global innovation index in the next, say, 5 to 8 years. To do that, I think we have to sensitize, motivate, and excite our universities and IITs to come forward and invest and collaborate with industry. Government should become enabler into this. But I think the innovation is the answer for moving forward, and so that is the ultimate vision of this policy that we have given, that India must position itself into in among the top three superpower in STI system in a decade time. I think that will be possible only when as I have been re-emphasizing that part, R&D institution. There are 7,000 R&D institutions in the country and nearly 1,000 universities. I think these 1,000 and 7,000 and the industry, which is very huge, at least they work together as part of one nation vision of taking India forward. I think we time is not very far that we become among the top science and technology superpower of the country, of the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, head STIP Secretary DST, and also the advisor and head for Splice and Climate Change Program in the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. And for our viewers, not many people know that Dr. Akhilesh Gupta has a remarkable past. He was one of the leading weather forecaster of the country, if I'm not wrong. We had the APAC dialogue in which he has talked about that elaborately. And thanks for joining us, Mr. Raghav Gupta, Managing Director, Indian APAC Coursera, and also Shantanu Mishra from Coursera. Thanks for joining us for this special virtual discussion on the science and technology innovation policy between Department of Science and Technology and Coursera team. Thanks for joining us. And before I conclude, let me conclude with this remark that innovation is the way forward for this country to move forward, and academia industry collaboration has to be there. That's how India can be in the top three league of science and technology innovation, putting a focus on skilling with digital intervention. Thank you so much for joining us in this special discussion
Thank
on
you.
science and technology innovation policy, where we have the government perspective, the main man who's drafting the policy. Also, we have the online disruptor perspective, if I may so say so, from the industry, and how both best of the minds can converge together to move forward. I think that has enlightened all of us today and our viewers today. Thank you so much for joining us. See
Thank
you
you.
on some other special edition of this virtual discussion organized by APAC News Network. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.